Hello everyone. Welcome to the Clarity 1603 Supportability and Feature Training. I'm Catherine Ellis, a Product Manager with Clarity. In this section, we will review the enhancements for the Staffing Workspace. So what's new? The marquee feature for the Staffing Allocations Timeline Workspace is the ability to edit allocation data per period for a selected resource. The Resource Manager will see all the projects, ideas, or custom investments allocated to the resource. The cells in the periods can be updated and previewed to see the impact of the resource's overall availability before saving the changes. During the demonstration, you will see some usability enhancements, such as landing on the last tab visited, either the Allocations Timeline tab or the Staff Grid tab, the ability to control the amount of data loaded on the page, and other miscellaneous improvements. So why is this important? The ability to edit per period allocations in a bulk edit mode before committing changes compared to the telescopic staffing plan workspace will drive adoption of the new staffing workspace. And the usability improvements will provide a better user experience. To prepare for the use of the staffing workspace, the Resource Manager will set up the configuration for the work effort unit of measure for FTE, hours, or days. Within the Allocations Timeline tab, the settings of the view options will drive what is displayed on the timeline for the periods and the decimal display, and thus in turn will drive what displays on the new bulk edit modal. To access the Edit Allocations modal, there are multiple places to bring it up. On the left side of the timeline and histogram, the general pattern to access actions is through the right-click Context Action menu. Regardless of which grouping layout is used, the Resource Manager can use the right-click action to open the Edit Allocations modal. On the right side of the timeline and histogram, the general pattern to access this new modal is through the double-click action. Regardless of which grouping layout is used, the Resource Manager can use the double-click action to open the Edit Allocations modal from a specific period. From the timeline, the staff allocation rows belong to specific investments. Therefore, when the Resource Manager double-clicks a period cell for the Edit Allocations modal, it will open up and land the cursor on the specific period for the investment. From the resource histogram, the row belongs to the resource, and hence when the double-click is used on a period cell, the modal will open and land the cursor on the specific period for the first row on the list. The list displays all active, non-template projects, ideas, and custom investments. It does not include inactive investments, template investments, and classic NPIO investments. The Resource Manager can edit the allocations and immediately see the impact of the changes before making a commitment to save the data. Because this modal is using the generic grid, there is the ability to use the copy-paste to make multiple changes quickly. Consistent with other bulk edit modal grids in the application, this is a fixed grid. There is no functionality to sort, filter, or configure additional columns. Simple usability enhancements have been made to provide an easier time for the user to experience the benefits of the new Allocations timeline. I will explain these enhancements here and won't necessarily demonstrate each one individually. You will see them in action when I demonstrate the new Edit Allocations modal. The new default landing page on the Staffing Workspace is now the Allocations timeline. After the upgrade, the first time the user visits this workspace, they will land on this tab. Across the product where we have an enterprise workspace, like the To-Dos workspace, the Resources, Roles, and Teams workspace, and the Staffing workspace, the last tab visited by the user will be remembered. In the prior release, If there are more than 5,000 records to display in the Allocations timeline, the application would pop up a toast message and force the user to create a filter to return less rows. With this new release, the data will start loading with a visual loading message in the area of the timeline panel or the histogram panel. The user will then have the ability to stop the loading and to resume the loading if desired. When an allocation row is modified that pushes out the date of the investment, you will now see the investment dates refreshed automatically at the grouping row when using the Investments by Allocations layout. When editing dates within a column on a timeline or any timeline in the system, the calendar widget would always hide behind the timeline pane. Now the calendar widget appears on top of the timeline pane. The vertical and horizontal divider bars within the timeline can be repositioned to the edge of the browser window. In the prior release, when the user resized the window, the handles to reposition the divider bars disappeared. Now the divider bars are still present after resizing the browser window. In 1602, with the introduction of the Auto Decimal View option, the per-period numbers displayed up to 5 positions. In the Allocations timeline, the numbers showed overlapping. This has been corrected and the numbers no longer overlap. The selected state of the Staffing Workspace menu icon now remains selected, regardless of the current tabbed page selected. In the following demonstration, I will focus on providing you with the details on how a resource manager can review and edit allocations for their resources using a bulk edit modal within the Allocations Timeline tab for the Staffing Workspace. During this demonstration, you will observe some of the usability enhancements implemented in this release. In this demonstration, I will assume the persona of Rosie Miller, a resource manager. I need to manage the allocations across my team for the next few weeks. The last time I was on the Staffing Workspace, I was working with the staff grid. I will now go to the timeline layout, and as you can see, there's lots of data loading. I have the option to stop loading or to continue loading the data. I will continue the loading, and we will see all the data that is in the list. I now want to look at my people, so I'm going to change my view to pull in all my resources on a weekly cadence. I'm looking at my list of people, and I see that Jason Berry has about 80 hours per week. That looks high to me, so I'm going to look and see what he has allocated. He's allocated to 2 investments, and so it looks like he's double booked. I will double click into one of the periods to open the modal, and from here I can edit the values as I want. So I think I'll go ahead and split him evenly between the 2 investments for 20 hours per week. So I can copy and paste this 20 across all the periods for both investments. I can see the results, and now I'm satisfied for what he's going to do the next couple of weeks, and I can save the changes. And the changes are immediately updated on the top and bottom. Thank you for your attention. This concludes the Staffing Management Updates section.